You're lying in bed at night, your eyes are closed, and no matter how tired you are, your brain just will not shut off. And the thing is, the harder we actually try and sleep, the more awake we become, and it almost feels like our brain is working against you. And the thing is, it's not even your fault. Your brain's actually doing what it is designed to do. In the next couple of minutes, I'm going to show you why this happens, the exact neuroscience behind why, and how you can start working with your brain instead of against it. Because the truth is, you can't control your sleep, but you can control the environment and the conditions that allow it to happen. And if you have ever felt trapped in the cycle of trying harder to sleep and just not being able to, please go ahead and like this video because it helps me understand whether or not this resonates with you. So let me walk you through what is happening right now. You have potentially struggled with sleep before, maybe for a couple days, maybe a couple weeks, maybe a couple years. And if this doesn't resonate with you, we still live in a world where the idea around perfect sleep is so unbelievably present. And in that process of being continuously bombarded by either having struggled with sleep before or the media and being told that sleep is important, when we do not sleep, our brain interprets that as not sleeping is a potential threat, meaning that when we do not sleep, or if we struggle with sleep, or if there's pressure to sleep, not sleeping is going to cause something bad to happen. And on a day-to-day basis, this is how it would typically transpire. You are lying down in bed and you have the thought, wow, I'm very tired. I need to sleep tonight. Or maybe I haven't slept well for a couple of days. I need to sleep well tonight. And that is the logical side of your brain. That is your prefrontal cortex logically identifying that you really want to sleep. But unfortunately, because in the past you have identified not sleeping as a threat, or we are constantly being bombarded by the idea that not sleeping is a threat, this message actually gets interpreted and intercepted by your amygdala. That is the survival part of your brain. Instead of logically hearing sleep is important, I would love to go to sleep, I feel comfortable, I feel safe, your brain starts to hear the complete opposite. It starts to hear not sleeping is danger. Being awake is a threat. And what ends up happening is that it starts flooding your body with all of your stress hormones, your cortisol and adrenaline, which actually makes you more awake. And this is in fact a trap, because the harder you try and sleep, the more you're signaling to your brain that the fact that you're not sleeping is a problem, and it is a problem that needs to be avoided. It feels like you're broken. It feels like your brain is working against you, but in reality, your brain is doing what it is designed to do, and that is to keep you safe. And the truth is, you can't fall asleep when you're stuck in your survival mode. That is because you are flooded with cortisol and adrenaline, and that makes it neurologically impossible for you to fall asleep. And the only way for us to do that is to shift our nervous system from parasympathetic, which is our fight or flight, into our sympathetic nervous system, which is our rest and digest. And the only way for us to do that is not through logic, it is not through force, but it is actually through signaling to our body that we are in fact safe. And this is not your fault, because most sleep advice tells you to control sleep. They tell you control your perfect environment, they tell you to control your thoughts, they tell you to have the perfect sleep hygiene, and all of this implies that sleep can be controlled, and it can't. In fact, control is a sympathetic activity. It is vigilant, and it is actually creating more hyperarousal. So here's what actually works. You need to stop trying to control sleep and stop trying to make sleep happen, and start working on allowing the conditions that create the environment that allow your body to feel safe enough for sleep to arrive. This is a shift from chasing sleep to actually allowing it. And realistically, you do not have a sleep problem. You have been sleeping since the day that you have born. Sleep is completely effortless. Your central nervous system is currently just keeping you awake in order to fight off something that it has perceived as danger. So the real work doesn't happen from a new sleep technique or a new sleep habit. It actually comes from allowing and creating an environment where your body actually feels safe enough to let go. And before we jump into any potential relaxation techniques that you can implement before going to bed, I do want to address that the number one thing that a lot of sleep advice tends to forget is how to address our racing thoughts. Because realistically, if you have been struggling with sleep, those racing thoughts get increasingly louder as the day progresses, and they are loudest when our head hits the pillow at night. And the reason being is because those thoughts actually serve a very real purpose. If you're worried about anything, and specifically sleep, those messages are signals, not flaws. It does not mean that our brain is broken or that we simply can't stop thinking about sleep, but it is actually our amygdala sending signals to our brain of something that it has perceived as danger. If you have been specifically struggling with sleep, your brain is probably worried about all of the things that will help it happen if you do not sleep. And our job is not to distract ourselves, because up until now, you're probably distracting yourself during the day. We have our job, maybe our kids, our partners, just life in general. It becomes quite easy for us to forget about those thoughts or maybe not give them the time of day. But as soon as we get into bed at night, they will become louder. And that is because we have not created space to actually listen to those thoughts and to listen to those worries. And those thoughts get really, really loud at night because your brain identifies the nighttime as the first possible moment in which you have allowed it to actually think and to actually listen to all of the thoughts that are there. I truly believe that we are not our thoughts. And the reason why we end up struggling and suffering quite a lot is because we take our thoughts at face value. But it is still very important to learn and understand why those thoughts are there. Because specifically, our thoughts are signals, and our primary focus as humans is survival. And if a thought is there, it is sending a signal that maybe something isn't making you feel safe, and that may be sleep, or it may actually be something else. So this is going to be how you implement scheduled worry time, or you can also call it a thought download into your day. You're going to set aside 10 to 15 minutes every single day. Maybe it is at the end of the day where you're going to allow yourself undisturbed time. That is time to yourself without your phone and without any distractions. And you're going to purposefully worry about anything that comes to mind. When I was personally struggling with sleep, I would worry and really write down all of the thoughts that would come to mind associated with what would happen if I did not sleep. And that practice was so incredibly powerful and so instrumental for my recovery, because it allowed me to see that everything that was happening in here wasn't in fact real. It was simply a fragment of my imagination. And the more you actually allow yourself to feel and experience the thoughts that come up instead of actually pushing them away, the lighter they actually become, because you're signaling back to your brain, well, thank you for warning me. And then you're deciding to choose whether or not that is a thought or a threat that you need to act on. Technique number 2, and this is such an important and powerful reframe, is that once you have already scheduled your worry time and you have dumped all your thoughts down on paper, I'm going to encourage you to shift your perspective around bedtime into one focused on sleep to one focused on rest. That means that you are no longer going to bed with the intention of making sleep happen. And I know this sounds counterintuitive because, of course, you want to sleep. And I'm not trying to deny that, but simply trying to focus or shift your focus from control to allowing is sending a very powerful signal to your brain. And that is basically signaling to your brain that not sleeping is no longer a threat. And that is because you are no longer chasing that thing. Sleep is like hunger. It happens completely by itself. You simply need to allow the conditions for it to come to you instead of you going to it. And technique number 3, once you have downloaded your thoughts, once you have focused on rest, you can also prepare your body and signal to your brain that it is in fact safe enough to let go. I used to purposefully implement this on the nights in which my thoughts would feel a little bit too loud or a little bit out of control. And this is not about chasing sleep or making sleep happen, but it is about signaling from your brain or from your body to your brain that you are in fact safe. And that is because logically you can't think your way into not having specific thoughts. You can't think your way into feeling safe, but you can use your body to signal to your brain that you are in fact safe and that the cause for concern, not sleeping, isn't in fact as dangerous as it perceives. So my favorite technique to do this, or my favorite breathing technique to do this, is called box breathing. And the way that you're going to do this, you can do this in bed, outside of bed, but you're going to find a comfortable and quiet place where you can either sit down or lie down with your eyes closed. And once you find that space, you're going to take a few normal deep breaths. And once you feel ready to begin the exercise, all you have to do is breathe in for a count of 4, hold the breath on full for a count of 4, exhale the breath out for a count of 4, and then hold on empty for a count of 4. You're going to repeat the same cycle for 5 to 10 repetitions. And then at the end of that, you can again allow yourself to come back to normal breathing and simply become aware of how you feel. These exercises are not about attaining a specific result, but they're about signaling to your brain that you are in fact safe. Because realistically, a lot of the things that we perceive as danger are fabrications of the mind. Realistically, nothing bad has happened to anybody who hasn't slept. Yes, it can be uncomfortable. Yes, it can be annoying. And yes, you can feel tired the next day. But realistically, it is not as dangerous for you as your brain currently thinks it is. And the third and final technique that is going to be the most constructive in allowing you to fall back asleep quicker is to befriend wakefulness. And I know that this sounds very counterintuitive because we are currently working to avoid being awake. And I know that this idea around befriending wakefulness can be a bit confusing. Some people think that befriending wakefulness means that you are welcoming being awake or you're trying to force yourself to be awake. But that isn't actually what it is. It means that you are accepting being awake and you are shifting your perspective from controlling sleep to controlling what you actually can control, which is your time. When I was personally in the thick of my recovery, I used to see being awake at night not as something I wanted, but as something that I had been given, meaning that I was personally awarded and provided with extra time. And instead of trying to avoid having it, I used that time to my advantage. I would do anything that I purposefully wanted to do. This is about reclaiming your time instead of wasting it. I used to sit, or when I used to go to bed at night, I would go to bed with a notebook and also a book by my bedside table. And I would use that as an option in case I couldn't fall asleep. I absolutely love journaling. I also love to read. And whenever sleep was, I guess, nowhere to be found or it just wouldn't come to me, I would shift my perspective and I would say, okay, well, I can't make sleep happen. And the more I'm just lying here waiting for it to happen, the less likely it is to happen. So I would use that time and do something I actually enjoyed. I would read a book. And funny enough, when you start shifting your perspective into doing something that you enjoy, you're signaling to your brain that you are in fact safe. This is where you are in your rest and digest. So I'm welcoming you to truly do anything that you want with this time that you have been given. And if you feel like all of this is making sense, but you would still like a deeper understanding or maybe a more comprehensive framework as to how to break out of sleep issues, I have also linked my free 30-minute masterclass below. I definitely encourage you to check that out. So this is how you can teach your brain to fall asleep faster every single night. Number one, you're going to start during the day or in the early evening, or you're going to schedule worry time. This is an opportunity where you are signaling to your brain that you are in fact listening to its worries. You are also sending the signal back to your brain that you are in fact safe and that sleep is not a cause for concern. Number two, you're going to shift your perspective from sleep to rest. That means that when bedtime approaches, you are no longer chasing sleep. You're no longer doing certain things in order to make sleep happen. Because realistically, sleep cannot be controlled. Sleep happens in the absence of effort and when we focus on rest instead. Technique number 4, you can implement different breathing techniques, specifically box breathing or even 4-7-8 breathing, which I haven't mentioned today, but you can also Google. And what that's going to do is that it's going to work through your body and signal to your brain that you are in fact safe. We can't logically reason with our thoughts and with our anxiety, but we can use the body to signal to our brain that we are, in fact, in a position of safety. And technique number 4, we're going to befriend wakefulness. That means that we're no longer trying to avoid being awake, but we're going to embrace that time. And instead of avoiding it, we're going to use that time to do something that we genuinely enjoy. And most sleep videos will give you techniques without the science. They will tell you what to do, but not why it works. This framework is truly different because it addresses the root cause. It's your nervous system perception of threat. By combining scheduled worry time, you are processing thoughts and threats during the day. Breathing techniques help vagal activation and nervous system regulation, and befriending wakefulness remove the resistance that keep you awake. You're not just treating the symptom, you're rewiring your nervous system to perceive sleep differently. And if this video resonated with you, hit the subscribe button. I release videos on a weekly basis, with a video coming out next week on how we live in a world that is purposefully sabotaging our sleep. I also encourage you to start scheduling in that worry time. Give it a few days and then leave me a comment and tell me if this resonated with you and how that's actually working for you. Additionally, if you have other related sleep questions or you want personalized advice, please go ahead and drop that in the comments below, and I promise to get back to you.